Well, I know a lot of folks that be listening to our revealed report is not happy. They feel like justice has not been served as the James Comey and Letitia James case has been dropped due to a technicality. And of course, the radical left is just, having a heyday with this. See, there was no wrongdoing by James Comey and Letitia James, and that mean orange man is just going after his political opposition, but he really doesn't have anything to go after them on. They really didn't do anything wrong, but not so fast, because it does not mean that there was no wrongdoing. It just means that it was dropped by a technicality. And I have in my, if I was Rush Limbaugh, I would say my formerly nicotine stained fingers from the New York Times. Judge dismisses cases against Comey and James, finding Trump prosecutor was unlawfully appointed. So we're going to give you a little bit of this, and then I'm going to give you a little breakdown on it. I quote, a federal judge on Monday tossed out separate criminal charges against the former FBI director James B. Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, saying the loyalist prosecutor installed by President Trump to bring the cases was put into her job unlawfully. The twin rulings by Judge Cameron McGowan Curry were the most significant setback yet to the president's efforts to force the criminal justice system to punish his perceived foes. The case dismissals also served as a rebuke to Attorney General Pam Bondi, who had rushed to carry out Mr. Trump's orders to appoint the prosecutor Lindsay Halligan as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. The dismissals, while embarrassing for the White House and the Justice Department, are unlikely to be the last word on an issue of constitutional authority that many legal experts expect could be appealed to the Supreme Court. And the way Judge Curry rendered her decision left open the possibility that another prosecutor could refile the charges against both Mr. Comey and Mrs. James. Judge Curry's orders center on Mr. Trump's unorthodox decision to appoint Ms. Halligan to her prosecutorial position in an interim capacity, replacing his previous pick, who was also serving in a temporary role. Within the days after assuming her new post, Ms. Halligan rejected the advice of career prosecutors in her new office and moved single-handedly to indict both Mr. Comey and Ms. James, two of president's most reviled targets. In her rulings on Monday, Judge Curry said that it was unlawful to appoint two interim prosecutors in succession and dismissed the charges against Mr. Comey and Ms. James without prejudice, I'm sure. Ms. Bondi said at a news conference Monday that the Justice Department would take all available legal action, including an immediate appeal. The dismissal of charges without prejudice meant the government could also try to refile them. Whatever the outcome of the ultimate legal fight over the appointment of Ms. Halligan, a former White House aide and personal lawyer of Mr. Trump. In a statement, a lawyer for Mr. Comey, Patrick J. Fitzgerald, said that with the dismissal of the case against his client, an independent judiciary vindicated our system of laws, not just for Mr. Comey, but for all American citizens, end quote. So you can see the radical left is just having a field day with this. They think, oh, this is going to hurt President Trump. What a great embarrassment this is. I mean, we got him on 34 trumped up charges, 34 indictment of felony charges, and some, unbiased court case, of course. And now he can't even go after his political opposition and bring them down. But we know that Pam Bondi, they're going to appeal this. It's not over yet. But I do understand the frustration of the conservatives out there that feels like justice is not being served when our president was wrongly accused and he was brought into a kangaroo court and he was charged with 34 counts on some trumped up charges. And now you can see that because of a technicality, James Comey and Letitia James is let off the hook. And I know it's very frustrating, but it's not over yet. And this is not really going to hurt the president at all. And I do know that, yes, President Trump is punching back at them. Yes, they are political opposition. They try to wreck and ruin his life, try to wreck and ruin his family's life. So, yes, he is going after them, but they were found there was wrongdoing. And unfortunately, the case got dropped because of a technicality. So I understand that there's some that's frustrated out there. I understand the sentiments completely. However, let's not lose hope. Let's not bury our head in the sand like the proverbial ostrich. We know that we have an uphill battle. They try to stop Trump on every single thing they can. And I know they're saying that it was unbiased. If you believe that, that's fine. I'm not so sold on that. But, it doesn't surprise me. The radical left, one thing they're good at is trying to outwit the other side. And so they got it dropped on the technicality. We'll see what happens in the future days with this. But be assured, keep your head up. Everything's going to be all right. No reason to get too bent out of shape over it. We don't know what the end result's going to be, but President Trump most certainly is not just going to let down the fight. If he got punched, he's going to continue to punch back, and he likes to win. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks and months. Well, there was a Ukrainian Russian peace plan leak that took place, and whoever leaked this out to the journalists should be brought up on espionage charges. They should be brought before court, and they should be indicted, and they should be convicted for espionage. And so we can see that that's a very bad deal for that to be leaked out. But I want to bring up the case about Ukraine and Russia because it really gets down to the heart of the difference between President Donald Trump and the radical left, because President Trump lives in reality. The radical left, they live in some fanatical idea that they have. They want this utopia. They're always trying to get to a utopia that doesn't exist. They have adopted the Karl Marx type of ideology, even to the equal ends, that to every man's ability, to every man's need. They think of all this utopian end result that they feel like they can just manufacture by their own doing. If you just give them enough legislative power, enough ability to judge your life on court rulings and get involved in every aspect of your life. And if they can tax you to death and redistribute your wealth, then they can take care of all the problems in society. They can end world hunger. They can end tornadoes and tsunamis and hurricanes and wildfires. All they have to have is enough power, because we know that all the Marxist ideas in the past, they weren't just exercised right. They just failed because the people didn't know how to implement it right. And so if you vote blue now, they'll be able to implement what so many before them failed at. They always have this utopian ideology. And even when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, they have this utopian thought that they can somehow get Ukraine to not lose any land, and they can just beat back Vladimir Putin, and they can defeat the Russians and take down the evil Vladimir Putin and get all their land back. But the truth of the matter is, Ukraine's back is against the wall. Zelensky's back is against the wall. And President Trump knows that. Zelensky, I'm not so sure if he knows that or not. I really don't know exactly what his thinking is, but Vladimir Putin knows that. Vlad knows that he has Ukraine's back against the wall. I don't like that. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that. We wish that Ukraine could be the David and defeating the Goliath, and they can win for the sake of democracy. And we wish that evil would be defeated. Everybody agrees to that. Nobody wants Russia to take more land. Nobody wants that in the West. And there's some people that's going to tell you, well, President Trump he's Vlad's friend, and he's his puppet, and he's like a Russian spy working for Vladimir Putin and trying to get him more land. No, President Trump realizes that the Russians are winning and many soldiers are dying every single day. And President Trump wants to do whatever he can to get the bloodshed to stop. President Trump, I believe, cares more about the Ukrainian people probably than even Zelensky does himself. And yet he wants the bloodshed to stop. But he knows that Putin is not just going to give back everything Ukraine wants and just go resort somewhere because Trump threatens him. Vladimir Putin knows that he's winning the war. So, and anybody in the mainstream media that's trying to paint the picture that Ukraine is going to be able to win this war is really hurting Ukraine. They're actually getting men slaughtered every single day by selling the idea that the Ukrainians have a chance of winning this war. Their back is against the wall. They're being slaughtered. They're trying to resort to drone striking right now. And so President Trump wants to help the bloodshed end. Now, you can debate on whether it's a good deal or a bad deal for the Ukrainians. I completely understand that. But you have to understand that Vladimir Putin is not going to stop unless there is some type of land concession or something that's going to benefit him. Why would he stop when he knows he is winning? And if somebody doesn't try to make a deal with him, he's just going to keep rolling over Ukraine, and he's just going to keep slaughtering more people. Now, there was a leak, and whoever leaked it out should be brought up on espionage charges. But here's from the USA Today. Will there be a Ukraine deal? Breakthrough cited ahead of Trump-Zelensky talk. Actually, I grabbed the wrong report here. Let's go to the New York Post first. Ukraine peace plan was authored by U.S., Rubio says, after claims it was merely a leaked Russian wish list. Secretary of State Marco Rubio insisted that the controversial Russia-friendly 28-point Ukraine war peace plan was authored by the U.S. despite a group of senators suggesting otherwise, and the European Union raising concerns. Some of these senators, including Angus King of Maine, who suggested Rubio described the 28-point plan as the wish list of the Russians, stood by their concerns about Moscow's influence over the proposal. This is preposterous. Let me keep reading it, and then I'm just going to beat the fire out of radical left, which is not really hard. I mean, Rush Limbaugh used to say, I'm beating the left with half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. I quote, the peace proposal was authored by the U.S. It is offered as a strong framework for ongoing negotiations, Rubio claimed on Saturday. It is based on input from the Russian side, but it is also based on previous and ongoing input from Ukraine. The plan appears to have been developed after extensive consultation with the Russians and the little, if any, input from Ukraine or our European allies, King said in a statement. There are many problems with the plan, as it has been reported, but the two most obvious are that it rewards Russia's illegal and unprovoked aggression by handing over substantial portions of Ukraine's sovereign territory, and its security guarantees against further Russian aggression are vague and inadequate, he added. Questions had swirled after the blueprint emerged last week, with experts noting how it appeared to have been translated from Russian to English. Then on Saturday, reports emerged from a bipartisan delegation of senators that spoke with Rubio while attending the Halifax International Security Forum in Canada, claiming that the Secretary of State informed lawmakers the 28-point blueprint was really a Russian wish list. Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, who was on the call, had publicly claimed Rubio called the bipartisan delegation of senators and claimed the secretary told them it is not our recommendation, it is not our peace plan. Republican Don Bacon of Nebraska, one of the most pro-Ukrainian GOP voices in the House of Representatives, called for the Trump administration to fire people over the confusion about the plan. Some people better get fired on Monday for the gross buffoonery we just witnessed over the last 4 days, Bacon said on X. This hurt our country and undermined our alliances and encouraged our adversaries. Other prominent senators, such as Senator Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, panned the proposal. This initial plan would be a total capitulation by Ukraine. I think it would go down, frankly, as a historically bad deal, rivaling Neville Chamberlain giving it in to Hitler before World War II, Warner told Fox News Sunday, end quote. Okay, so let me just deal with this for a second. I don't know all the ins and outs of this deal and all what created the confusion. There was a leak, and whoever did that should be brought up on the espionage charges. However, this is what I will say. I want to attack the fact that the radical left lives in wacky land. They live in their own utopian paradise that is not reality. I know we don't want aggressors winning. We don't want to incentivize aggressors to go in and take democracy territory. However, you have to understand that the Russians are winning this war right now. Zelensky's back is against the wall. Many, many soldiers are dying every single day. And so the only way you're going to get Putin to stop is you're going to have to negotiate some kind of deal. You can't just tell him, hey, bad Putin, go back and sit down and give that territory back over to the Ukrainians. I'm going to put you in timeout, Vlad. I'm going to put you in a corner and give you a whooping. Don't you do that anymore. You think Putin is going to listen to that? You think Putin is just going to cough that all up and say, okay, I resort. Yeah, no problem. I'll just go over here and leave them alone and quit being the bully for a little while. That's not how it works. The only way that this war is going to end is there has to be some kind of brokering of a deal. And that means Putin is going to get something out of it. That doesn't make us pro-Russia. That doesn't make us on Putin's side whatsoever. That's just the reality of life. The radical left would rather get thousands of people slaughtered every single day to try to look noble in the eyes of the media and act like they're standing up against that big bad Russian government leader that's just trying to beat up on his this democracy opposition and steal their land. Oh yeah, we're going to stand up and we're going to chest bump him and show him who's boss, and we're going to let you know that while President Trump is his puppet and he's just a Russian spy just helping Vlad out, we're the real ones trying to stand up and fight for Ukraine, and we're the real ones trying to stand for democracy. And the end result is this war just keeps getting prolonged and prolonged, and thousands of soldiers are dying every single day. It is President Trump that lives in reality. It is the GOP, for the most part, true conservatives, the true MAGA, that lives in reality, that understands that they're not just going to get Vladimir Putin to go play nice. They have to broker a deal. And that means there's probably going to have to be some land concession. Do I like that? No. Does Trump probably like that? Absolutely not. Does Rubio like that? No. Nobody likes that. However, that's the only way you're probably going to bring the war to an end. But, you know, they're going to say, well, you'll have, what's his name? The war hawk, Lindsey Graham, that thinks he's just going to have a overthrow over there in Russia. You know, we're going to overthrow that we're going to overthrow that tyrant, and we're going to turn Russia into a democracy. And that would be his idea for regime change. Trump lives in a real situation. He lives in reality, and he knows the only way this comes to an end is there's probably going to have to be land concession. Nobody likes that, but that's the only way this war is probably going to come to an end. But the radical left, they want to play noble. That's all it is. It's political optics. That's all it is. All they're doing is putting on a display that they're the ones fighting for democracy, that really loves the Ukrainians, while they're helping incentivize many of them to get killed. Don't be deceived by them playing on your emotions, playing on you. The radical left thinks that people are so gullible and so dumb that they can human manufacture their thoughts. Don't stoop down to their playing on you. They're deceptive. They're snakes. And the way that the enemy works is like to appeal to your emotions and play like they're the noble ones, and they're a beast that wears the mask of a lamb. And inwardly, they're just ravening wolves trying to devour their enemies. This is all Trump derangement syndrome. They just want to go in the face of Donald Trump, even at the expense of the lives of Ukrainians and Russians as well, because there's Russian soldiers that are dying every single day in this war as well. Trump does not like war. Yes, he is not scared to fight against his enemy if he has to. He does believe in peace, but peace through strength. Trump does not like war. He would love nothing more than this war to come to an end, and therefore some concessions will probably have to be made. But the moment he does that, the radical left is going to paint it that he's really on Putin's side. It's such dishonesty by the drive-by media. It's such dishonesty by the Democrat Party. They really don't care about human life. They care about going against Trump for their political advantage. From the U.S. Today, it is put out, will there be a Ukraine deal? Breakthrough cited ahead of Trump-Zelensky talks. What are the core terms of the U.S.-Ukraine peace plan? How do European allies support this peace process? When does Zelensky plan to visit the U.S. for final negotiations? And what are the biggest gift ideas on sale for Black Friday? It has nothing to do with the story. A top Ukrainian official said his country, although I guess it would be a good Black Friday for Ukrainians if they quit getting slaughtered. A top Ukrainian official said his country and the United States reached a common understanding on the core terms of an agreement to end nearly 4 years of war, with final negotiations to take place between Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, and President Donald Trump by the weekend. Ukraine's national security advisor, Rustem Umerov, said Zelensky was planning to visit the United States in the next few days to complete final steps to make a deal with the U.S. president. Trump set an initial deadline of this Thursday for an agreement to be reached, but the White House has since tweaked the timing to say it's trying to reach consensus as soon as possible. A U.S. official confirmed that the core aspects of a bad deal had been reached, but was not able to say what those were because of the sensitivity of the negotiations. The person said that technical details of the agreement still needed to be hammered out. A second official stressed that the White House is optimistic about a deal, but did not say one had been reached with Ukraine. The latest movements toward peace came after Ukrainian, American, and European officials gathered in Geneva on November 23rd to discuss a draft plan presented by Washington to end the conflict that began in 2022 when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The current version of the plan has not been made public, and it would also have to be accepted by Russia. U.S. officials familiar with the discussion have declined to say what is in the working draft because of the sensitivity of the negotiations, end quote. And that's the way it should be. Trump shouldn't be telling all the plans to all the media and getting it out there before these plans are even met. And so the drive-by media, the Democrat Party, they're so disingenuous and so dishonest, and they try to play noble while they get human lives slaughtered just to try to go up against Trump. And who is saying that it's a bad deal? We don't even know all the details of it. But I think the marker of whether it's a good deal or a bad deal, you have to go and view who's the one that's saying that, what their discretion is about this war. Because the truth of the matter is, most people want Ukraine to get all their land back, and they don't want any land concessions to be made. And I don't either. However, it's either do you keep dragging out the war or do you try to negotiate something that's going to bring an agreement? What is going to be the least cost to the Ukrainians at the greatest output of peace for the last 4 years of the war? That's what has to be negotiated, and that's what has to be hammered out. And I think President Trump is the man for that. Could you imagine if Calamity Commie Harris was there? Do you think Vladimir Putin would stop if Calamity Commie Harris was out there leading the United States of America? They want to talk about how Trump's not doing a good job, and he's letting the Russians probably be incentivized towards their more aggression because he's probably going to have to tell Zelensky to concede some land to the Russians. And how can he do that? He is furthering Vladimir Putin's desire to take over more of Europe and that. And he's working for the Russians. Could you imagine if Calamity Commie Harris was the one trying to negotiate this? Do you think there would even be a chance for Ukraine to even come out of this? And so you find that the radical left, they just like to play noble while they always are on the wrong side. I mean, they'll take an 80-20 issue and they'll be on the 20% side fighting against the 80% side that's got it right, just so they can go in the face of Donald Trump and then wear the mask as if they're noble. And if that's not bad enough, it's not just on foreign policy, but in addition to that, we find that in the radical left state of Illinois, which most of Illinois is not actually radical left. It's much conservative by large, but we find that Cook County and Chicago ruins it for the rest of us in this state. But you can see that crime is high in Chicago. And we heard the horrific, tragic story of the Chicago woman, Bethany McGee, that was murdered by a career criminal in Chicago that set her on fire. Let me give you this Fox News report, and then I want to bring it into why the radical left really always is trying to side with the victimizers rather than the victims. And then I'm going to go into why I'm saying this and what else is going on and prove one of the points I've been trying to make to you. From the Fox News article, it is entitled Chicago Train Attack Victim Bethany McGee, known as Smart, from wonderful small town family. And I quote, a 26-year-old woman was set on fire allegedly by a career criminal in Chicago. What do you mean allegedly? In Chicago is being described by friends and neighbors as a kind and hardworking individual from a close-knit small town family. Bethany McGee, the victim of the horrific attack, is an avid reader who took honor classes at her high school in Indiana. A former classmate who goes by Ethan told the New York Post, she is incredibly smart, very soft-spoken, very gentle, very smart, he said. A local who lives near the family in their small, tight-knit Christian community in Upland, Indiana, said the community is keeping her in their thoughts and prayers as she remains in critical condition as a hospital burn until following the attack on a CTA Blue Line train on November 17. We just know they are going through a hard time, so we are praying for them, one local told the outlet. And so you can see that that this career criminal went and set this woman on fire. Okay, now here's the point I want to get to. Not only did he set her on fire, not only is he in court, but the radical left, their idea is not to try to put him behind bars. No, no, no. Instead, their idea is to try to contemplate on whether or not he should actually be locked up or not. Just listen to the report and listen how they put this out there. Listen to the spin on this, and then we're going to talk about the mindset of the radical left today.
Lawrence Reed has at least 14 criminal cases in Cook County going back to 2017, 6 of which are battery charges. Records appear to indicate that he may be homeless and suffering from a mental illness of some sort, something that was clear to see for anyone inside yesterday's initial court hearing. The question we asked today is, what does this mean for his case going forward? Speaking after yesterday's court hearing, federal investigators were unequivocal when it came to their description of the man they say set a 26-year-old woman on fire on the CTA's Blue Line Monday night.
Lawrence Reed had no business being on the streets, given his violent criminal history and his pending criminal cases.
A record search of Reed led to this, a long list of mugshots associated to crimes ranging from driving on a suspended license to battery. In 2020, he was sentenced to a 24-month mental health probation after setting this fire outside the Thompson Center. And just a few months ago, in August, he was placed on electronic monitoring after he allegedly struck a social worker while being held in the McNeil Psychiatric Hospital in Berwyn. In court yesterday, Reed's erratic behavior included yelling several times, "I plead guilty," while also insisting he would represent himself, raising the question whether his competence could make it hard to secure a conviction.
I'm not aware of him ever being declared mentally incompetent in connection with any of the.
So that you see what they're doing here. They're saying, feel sorry for him. We think that he might have a mental handicap. And so it's really not his fault that he's a career criminal. So maybe his court case should be tossed out, or maybe he shouldn't really have to face a punishment because, you know, he was homeless and he might have had a mental handicap. And so it's really not his fault that he is in this condition. And then on top of it, this is exacerbated because of J.B. Pritzker's idea here. Let me give you the Yahoo News article. Pritzker willing to tweak Safety Act, that's Safe-T Act, after woman set on fire on Chicago train. And I quote, Governor J.B. Pritzker said Friday he is willing to consider changes to Illinois' Safety Act after a man with a lengthy criminal record was charged with setting a passenger on fire aboard a Chicago Transit Authority Blue Line train. The attack occurred on November 17th when authorities say 50-year-old Lawrence Reed doused a 26-year-old woman with gasoline and ignited her. The victim remains hospitalized in critical condition. Federal prosecutors charged Reed with against a mass transportation system, a rare charge that carries a potential life sentence. Court records show Reed has been arrested dozens of times over the past 2 decades. Speaking at an unrelated event in Stokey, Pritzker states about the Safety Act's elimination of cash bail, saying the law was designed to give judges discretion to detain defendants who pose a danger to the public. Bail is sort of an automatic out of out for people who just happen to have enough money, and an automatic incarceration for somebody who happens not to have enough money, Pritzker said. The Safety Act is designed to give judges the ability to keep people in jail who they think are potentially dangerous for the community. Sometimes bills get passed and everybody that votes for it knows that there needs to be a trailer bill or a tweak that needs to be made afterwards, he added. I think everybody is open to listening to what changes might need to be made. Illinois became the first state to abolish cash bail when the Safety Act's pretrial provisions took effect in September 2023. Republican lawmakers have repeatedly called for repeal or significant amendments describing the current system as catch and release, end quote. That's exactly what it is. It's a catch and release program. I mean, in every blue city and state where they begin to go soft on crime, these are the things that begin to take place. And you find that they do the blame game. J.B. Pritzker saying it's not really the safety that's really the issue. It's not the catch and release that's the problem. It's the judges did not make the proper discretionary decision. They could have kept them locked up. It's their fault. And this is the world you live in when you have left-wing governors and you have left-wing judges and you have left-wing mayors. This is the type of violence that takes place. And then to top it all, when he should be behind bars for the rest of his life or capital punishment, they're going to say, well, maybe, just maybe, after all of his career criminal activity, we should not lock him up and we probably shouldn't give him a life sentence because he's homeless, you know? He's really the victim of society. The culture calls this problem. The fact that he doesn't have a home, the fact that he doesn't have a place to live, and he doesn't know where his next meal is going to come from, and he might have a mental handicap. Therefore, we have to go light on his sentence and be soft on his punishment. And this is why these activities continually take place, because when you go soft on crime, you incentivize the criminal to keep doing what they're doing. And yet the radical left are going to try to paint the picture that Trump is trying to incentivize Russia to take more land as an evil tyrant because they want to live in a fantasy land and they want to act like they're noble, and they're the ones trying to fight against lawlessness, and they're the ones trying to fight against the evil, while simultaneously they go soft on crime and they're trying to see if they can lighten down the sentence for a career criminal that set a young lady on fire at a Chicago train station. This is the radical left for you. Be not deceived. They don't really care about lawlessness or out of control activity. All they care about is political optics. All they care about is power and control and going against the orange man with too many red ties. It's all about a political game for them. So don't be deceived by them when they say that they're trying to truly fight for the Ukrainians. No, it's all political optics. That's all it is. And the radical left, you got to understand the difference between the two parties, okay? Let me make it as simple for you as I possibly can. I try to do this all the time. The radical left believes that illegal immigration is good and that ICE agents that are trying to crack down on the illegal infiltration into our system without assimilation, they're evil. The ones that are trying to enforce the law are evil, and the ones that are breaking the law are good. The ones that are these are the ones that will defend protesters lighting up cities on fire, and yet they'll demonize Trump for trying to use federal enforcement to crack down on it. They're the ones that are sympathetic towards criminals while they also take away law-abiding citizens' guns. These are the ones that stand in defense of the Maryland man while they also stand against Donald Trump. They stand in defense of drug smuggling cartel gangs, and they stand against Trump that's trying to crack down on it. These are the ones that are sympathetic towards criminals, and yet they want to defund the police. These are the ones that stand with people that burn the flag rather than the ones that want to make burning the flag an illegal activity. They don't care about lawlessness. They are not noble. They're not trying to fight for democracy. They're not trying to fight for freedom. They're not trying to fight for the Constitution. They wear a mask of deception to try to sell that to the people while they sell the American people out just to go against Trump so that they can fulfill their globalist ideology and keep their power and control and their coffers filled with silver. That's all this is about. They're not really trying to fight for the Ukrainian people. They're actually helping them get slaughtered by living in a fantasy land. And they also push forth laws that helps get young ladies lit on fire. It's full of deception. And don't come and tell me that the radical left really cares about the victims and the Jeffrey Epstein file. It's all political optics. They really don't care. If they did care, they would not have selectively waited for President Trump to become the president of the United States to begin to act like they care. They would have been doing this under Biden and Calamity Comey Harris. They would have been pursuing it back then. It's not about the victims. It's not about what they say is their noble cause. It's all about political optics. It's all a smear campaign against Donald Trump and against the right to try to get themselves back into power. Do not be deceived at the midterms. They are not fighting for the American people. They are trying to chest bump against Trump. And now they're all racing to see who's going to be the biggest and baddest one to go up against him. J.B. Pritzker he's going to get out there and he's going to flex on Donald Trump. Mom Donnie, oh yeah, Trump's a fascist, until he looks like a little schoolboy standing right next to him. Trump slapping him in the arm saying, yeah, you can call me a fascist. It's easier than trying to explain it. These folks are just radically out of their mind, okay? They don't care about the American people at all. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about safety. They don't care about freedom. It's all political optics. They're not fighting for Ukraine. They're not fighting for the people in the cities. They're saying, well, we're trying to stand for the Constitution against these federal ICE agents and all of that. While Chicago hears gunshots every weekend and people are being slaughtered to death, just like they're being slaughtered to death in the battlefield against Russia in Ukraine. And so you have to understand that these are the same people that the moment that these innocent Catholic school kids got shot inside of that school, some of them on the radical left, their greatest concern was not grieving and mourning with the families of those that got shot. No, first of all, they want to go and try to take law-abiding gun owners' guns away. That's their first thing they want to do. Next thing they want to do is they want to try to defend the trans community, because this means that people might turn their hatred up towards the trans community. And so we got to make sure that the trans community is being protected, because that trans shooter, he doesn't represent all the trans community. So we don't want backlash against the LGBTQ2 plus community and all the other acronyms in the alphabet soup that they come up with. This is the radical left. It's the same ones after 9/11, when radical Islamic jihadists went and attacked our country. They were the ones, instead of focusing their attention on trying to take jihadism down and try to rid out the Islamic infiltration into the United States of America without assimilation. No, they were worried about Islamic phobia. They were worried about Islamic hatred. And then they began to spend their time and their effort making sure they protect the Islamic community against all the Islamic phobia people. Let me just tell you, I am not afraid of Islam, but it is not American. And I am concerned, though, with how they're saying that they're noble while they are allowing an Islamic infiltration into the United States of America without assimilation. And they are beginning to try to take parts of the education system. Go to Dearborn, Michigan. It sounds more like Mecca than the United States of America. You'll hear less church bells and you'll hear the call of Mecca as they begin to look towards their homeland over there. But yet we're supposed to be worried about all the Jews over here. We're supposed to be worried about all of the Israel people that are going to infiltrate our government and take over it. While we even see that now. Look, I don't support this, but some humor to it. But you know, there was the Muslims that were up on the rooftop and they were praying towards Mecca. and there was some so-called Christian protesters that came, and they, from what I seen, there was no physical assault that took place, but they were waving bacon, and they were pretty much protesting the Islamic prayer towards Mecca. And from my understanding, they're being charged with like assault. They're getting felony charges for that, which is radically, if they didn't assault anybody, yes, was it distasteful? Well, the bacon was probably tasteful, but the act might have been a little distasteful. But look, there's freedom of speech. It's amazing to me that we have so many American people that would rather side with Islam than anything of Christianity. You even have some of them, like Tucker Carlson, that's even downplaying the persecution in Nigeria, the Christian persecution. They want to talk about genocide. Oh, it's a mass genocide, and they're just slaughtering all the Palestinian people. Israel, they're so evil because they're trying to fight a war and win a war. And yet they won't talk about the Christian persecution in Nigeria, while Christians are being slaughtered over the land, being burned inside of the churches. And yet they play the noble cause. We're just standing up for the innocent Palestinian children that are being slaughtered. The radical left, and then the reprobate conservatives on the so-called right, they begin to play into your emotions, and they try to appeal to you. And really what it is, it's insulting to the American people's intelligence. It's insulting that they think that we're that dumb, that we're going to fall for all of these tricks on our psyche. It's just a psyops. It really is. It's a political psyops to try to play on the minds of people, to get them to think that the Democrat Party is really the ones. They even tried to flip the script on the government shutdown. This is Trump shutting down the government. We see clearly that the Democrats could have stopped the shutdown at any given moment, but yet they wanted to chest bump Donald Trump and the GOP just to fall flat on their back. And you find that Chucky Schumer finds out that the moment that he doesn't give them what they want, they'll stab him in the back, because that's what collectivists do. But don't you worry, America, vote blue in the midterms, because they care about you. They care about your cities. They care about safety. They care about the Constitution. And it's just a political psyops from the radical left. And so the American people need to not be deceived. Now, and all of that, though, there is some good news. There's some changes that are coming, and they flipped the script on this too. But there are some changes that are coming to SNAP benefits. And here you go, which I will tell you, normally we never do this, but there's no way for me to present this to you without giving you the full thing. And so you will hear a bleep. It's bleeped out. I don't even like that on my network, but sometimes it's really difficult to present to you what is in the news cycle without that. It is bleeped out, but if you're a parent that doesn't even like that, fair warning, we try to make this as kid friendly as we can, but fair warning, it's coming. It is bleeped out. You won't hear the word, but if you like to get your kids out of the room, go ahead for it now. Here it comes.
Government officials say if you are 18 to 65 years old, you don't have a disability, you don't live with kids under the age of 14, and you don't work at least 20 hours a week, you'll likely lose your SNAP benefits. Some people on SNAP tell me they don't know if they'll have enough money to afford groceries.
That's some bull.
Nelson Scott is on the verge of losing access to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. He is 38, not disabled, doesn't have any kids, doesn't go to school, and doesn't have a job. Those are just some of the reasons he is no longer eligible for SNAP benefits. How much did SNAP help you?
It helped me a lot. I get $292 a month.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture crackdown is led by President Trump, who signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law in July. The government shutdown stalled the November 1st deadline for implementation. However, these changes are still coming up.
We help.
Signe Anderson is a senior director of nutrition advocacy with the Tennessee Justice Center.
Because of rules like this, we can see individuals that are going to be forced to skip meals.
She points out senior citizens and children between the age of 15 and 18 will be most impacted. Rick Williams is a conservative political analyst.
A 15 or 16-year-old can take care of themselves at home while you go work. There's no reason you can't be working. There are plenty of jobs out there.
Scott tells me as a convicted felon, getting a job
isn't easy.
I will get one if y'all give me one. Y'all be felony friends.
So we're going to incentivize this man being a felon by giving him free taxpayer money so we can pay for his food and we can pay for his life and we can fund him because he decided to go break laws. Look, the truth of the matter is, if he wants a job, he can find a job. There's plenty of jobs. By the way, didn't you see the job report shows that the jobs are up even beyond what was expected, which, by the way, for the H-2B visas that everybody's fighting against, on some on the right side of the aisle that's now questioning President Trump, you have to understand there's a lot of people in the United States of America that's gotten used to not working, and trying to get them out of a mindset of not working to working is not so easy. And President Trump knows the midterms is coming up, and if he's going to get the affordability there, he's got to fill those jobs quick, crank up the supply, because when you crank up the supply, it brings the prices down. It cuts down on inflation. You can cut down on the interest rates. It's the perfect law of supply and demand. President Trump knows that. He wants to fill those seats up. He wants to get people working. He wants to get the supply up and get the cost down. He wants to make things affordable. It's intelligent. We don't need to question the president right now. He's usually several steps ahead of all of us. But yet you can see in the United States of America, we have incentivized laziness. I believe in what the Bible preaches, that if a man doesn't work, he ought not to eat, that man shall work 6 days and the seventh day he can rest. Now, I understand that there are some people that are in legitimate bad situations. There are some people that have medical situations and they do need an upper hand, not a handout necessarily, but an upper hand. However, for 42 million people to be on SNAP benefits is out of control. And my question is, do we more care about trying to feed this man who says he can't get a job, even though there's plenty of jobs out there? Or do we bank at the bankruptcy of America's future? So eventually our grandchildren, great-grandchildren are all in bad financial crisis. Or do we try to cut back on all of the taxes being redistributed and being sent out for some people that can get up and get a job? And so I'm glad that there is some changes coming to the SNAP benefits. There needs to be changes to the SNAP benefits. And they trying to paint the picture that Trump is the one that was shutting down the government and causing the SNAP benefits to cease. No, that's not the case. It was Chucky Schumer bending his knee to the radical left that was controlling him because he was scared that he would be primary against, that was keeping the government shut down. Now, President Trump is causing there to be cutbacks to 42 million people getting SNAP benefits, and great, because these programs are on autopilot. Do you realize that the debt, the service our debt, is even more so than the money we spend on our national defense? That is a law and economy that when it's usually broken, that means the country is going to die financially. And so we have already broke that law, and now we are riding on the grace of God, praying that it doesn't catch up with us. But the laws of economy always works. Eventually, it's going to catch up with us. Eventually, we're going to find out that the nation is not as stable as what we would like it to be, and the dollar is going to be fully desecrated. So I'm glad that President Trump is cutting back on a lot of these things. Now, Elon Musk just recently showed us that a big reason that they're having a hard time cutting back on a lot of this stuff is because both the radical left and about 10% or so of Republicans benefit from all of this. And so President Trump is going up against the machine. And you see, when Elon Musk and Doge, they were trying to make cutbacks, they were trying to do everything they could to ruin Elon Musk's life. They were trying to firebomb Teslas and all of those things. That's the radical left for you. They are a party of violence while they try to wear the noble mask. They don't have a problem with lawlessness. They don't have a problem with criminal activity. They don't have a problem with drug cartels. They don't have a problem with city streets having violence filled all over them. They don't care about cities being burned down if it's for their revolutionary cause. And yet the whole time they're trying to tell you that Trump and the GOP and the Republicans, they're the evil ones that don't care about you. And so I'm praying that the general public has not forgotten how crazy the radical left is. I pray that we are reminded. This is what Revealed Report is trying to do, is remind the American people of how crazy the radical left is. And it's not just Calamity Commie Harris and Lion Biden. It is all of the left. They have all bought into this. They have all stooped down to these low standards. They sell their souls for political control. They sell their souls for their ability to prosper in what is supposed to be a public office for the people. And so we need to be praying, and it's not a time to turn our back on the president. It's not our time to let the divisions in the MAGA side of the aisle begin to pull us away from the president of the United States. We need to stand for what he's doing. We need to put some trust in him. He's never proven us wrong so far in doing such. And let's pray that he continues to push forward his agenda. America, I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate those that pray for what we're doing here. By the way, if you haven't got it yet, The Final Flame. If you're into novel mystery thrillers packed with suspense, enough suspense for the men, enough romance for the women. If you like that kind of stuff, and let me just give you one page here, just one page. And I quote, "The world didn't explode, it just unraveled, not all at once, just piece by piece, until the pieces stopped fitting. Smoke drifted across the streets like it belonged there. Lights flickered in buildings that were half burned. Surveillance drones buzzed overhead like giant metal mosquitoes, scanning everything and everyone. The old rules were gone, replaced by checkpoints, biometric scans, and posters that smiled while they threatened. Ethan Cole walked with one hand gripping the strap of his old guitar case, the other shoved in his coat pocket. He stepped over his smashed tablet screen, still glowing faintly. A sign nearby read, 'Welcome to the Reset.' Someone had spray painted 'Liars' over it in red, then crossed that out and scrawled, 'We let them.' It's a novel mystery thriller, a lot of plot twist in it, good, clean romance. You can find it on Amazon. It's written by your favorite podcast host, or you can email us at revealedpublications@gmail.com to figure out how to get a signed edition. Well, America, I love you. The church will be standing tomorrow, for Jesus said, 'Upon this rock, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.' But if the republic has not totally been burned down by tomorrow, I'll see you then. God bless you, America. Have a great night.